Trump's explosive statements about the fate and future of the Gaza Strip mind-boggles the world as the torture and starvation of our Jewish hostages continues. For analysis and all angles, join me today on the Jordana River Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Jordana River Podcast. I'm Jordana and it's good to be back. Today is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. We are here in the beautiful land of Israel. It is a beautiful, rainy, cloudy day. And since we are finally filming it during the daylight, I get to show you guys the olive groves. But first, just a short introduction. For those of you who know me, welcome back. And for those of you who are new, welcome to the show, Jordana River Podcast, where we take deep dives into the current events from the Jordana angle and outlook. So as we usually try to do, I want to show you guys the olive groves here in my backyard. Beautiful view from my hometown in the Cimmerian Hill where I reside. Take a look. All right, guys, I even cleaned the window for you guys. How's that? This is a beautiful view of the backyard where you can see the beautiful olive groves here in the Cimmerian town. It's a cloudy, rainy day. As you can see, beautiful olive trees. All right, my friends, it is great to be back. We have a lot of new things to discuss on today's episode. I hope you enjoy. All right, so last Tuesday, Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, had a historic, crucial meeting regarding the Middle East and Israel and a lot of different crucial issues and matters, followed by a joint press conference that the two of them gave to the press. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu were both standing and speaking when Trump delivered the statement, the mind-boggling statement, what about the fate of the day after in the Gaza Strip. Here are the brief outlines in the different points of what he said. 1, Hamas, the terrorist Nazi organization, can no longer rule there, period. Okay, no ifs, buts, or maybes. Hamas can no longer be in charge. We know that Hamas, that is one of their main objectives, to continue to stay in power, to rule over the Arabs in the Gaza Strip, and to continue perpetrating more October 7th massacres. God forbid, that is what they say publicly. After the atrocious October 7th atrocities that we have not seen since the Holocaust, Hamas vows to continue perpetrating that time and time again. So Hamas can no longer stay in the ruling government there, period. Number 2, Trump says the Gaza population, which consists of approximately 1.8 million Gazans, has to relocate, first of all, to build a better future for themselves, but also for the world. Israel and the world cannot afford to continue harboring the most incited people, most incited population on earth, okay, who cheered October 7th, okay? This approximately 1.8 million Gazan population, they, first of all, many of them infiltrated into the Gaza Strip and helped Hamas terrorists perpetrate the atrocities. So these are not, majority of them are not innocent civilians. We've seen the footage of them cheering on the terrorists who were dragging hostages back into the Gaza Strip, children, women, elderly men, elderly women who they dragged and beat and dragged on their motorcycles into the Gaza Strip as they kidnapped them. We have seen the Gaza population, the innocent civilians, surrounding those vehicles of terrorists and cheering and handing out sweets and celebrating. Many of them also harbor and hide the terrorists with their hostages, with our Jewish hostages, our Israeli Jewish hostages. And even the ones who don't actively assist, they all support Hamas. They elected Hamas back in 2007 when Israel actually gave over the Jewish communities of the Gaza Strip. We just handed it to the Gazan population back in 2005 during the disengagement, which was really expulsion of Israeli Jewish citizens. About 9,000 Jewish citizens were expelled from our land. We just gave it as a unilateral stupidity gift to the Gazan population in 2005, followed by the Gazan population electing the Hamas Nazi terrorists as their ruling government. And these innocent civilians just truly are supportive and affiliated with the terrorists' vision and philosophy of murdering Jews, doing everything they can to destroy the state of Israel. Now, the world also, this seems to be the Israel's problem, the Jews' problem, but it's really not. This is, the world cannot allow the most horrific crimes against humanity. We're talking about the most basic civil rights that are being violated every day, as we still have about 80 Jewish hostages remaining in the hellholes of Gaza, in torturous, horrific conditions, as we'll elaborate on that point a little bit later on. So what is Trump's vision instead? What's the alternative? I mean, this is a man who thinks out of the box. As they say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. We already handed the Arabs the land of Gaza, the Gaza Strip. We handed it over. This was our land, which we conquered in 1967. After Israel was attacked and invaded by many Arab countries, we conquered the Gaza Strip, which is also historically our land, and we handed them beautiful pieces of communities called Gush Katif. Those were Jewish communities inside the Gaza Strip with greenhouses, agriculture, beautiful homes. We foolishly and sinfully expelled our own people, 9,000 Jewish settlers, Jewish civilians residing in the Gush Katif area of the Gaza Strip, handed it over to Hamas to miraculously, fantastically expect them to just become peaceful after that. But they did not. They built hundreds of underground tunnels. They say the underground tunnel system in Gaza, which was aimed for kidnapping Israelis, God forbid, and to attack soldiers by surprise, it's a longer stretch than the New York City subway system. They use billions of dollars that they get every year from UN, USAID, which was thankfully shut down by Donald Trump in an executive order. One of the many executive orders he signed over the past 2 weeks of his second term. And that's what they use the money for. Giving them land, more and more of our land, did not help, will not help. And we don't want war. Israel is peaceful. We do not want to continue having to go to war with them. We don't want to go to war with them. We just want to eliminate the threat that is called the Gaza Strip, which, like I said, 1.8 million Gazans, innocent Gazan civilians who support and actively assist Hamas cannot change, okay? The denazification after World War II in Germany was easier than having to denazify this population. They are the most incited population against Jews in the entire world, and that has to change. So Donald Trump, here comes Donald Trump, a businessman and a real estate developer, and he says, you know what? We're going to get rid of Hamas. We're going to kill off the leadership of Hamas, and we're going to transfer the Gazan population to various Arab countries who can receive their own brethren, and to other countries around the world. And we will make this beautiful coastal strip of land the Riviera of the Middle East. Why not? He sees the potential. He sees the real estate potential. He sees the beauty that is there. It is a beautiful strip of land before it became the Hamas hellhole. And the world has gone ballistic. The world has gone berserk and bananas over this. Everyone for their different reasons and agendas. So Donald Trump sees the Gaza Strip as a beachfront property potential where he sees the U.S. taking over that strip of land after Israel could militarily clean out the place and neutralize it from all the Hamas threats, including Hamas not allowing their own people to leave the strip as they have done since the beginning of the war. They will not allow their people to leave because they have an agenda to keep them there, A, to support them, and B, to continue blaming and shifting the blame at Israel, even though many of the Gazan civilians do want to leave the strip. So some fun facts, all right? From the, the Trump estimates about 1.8 million Gazans still live in Gaza, but the experts say it's actually less. This is a fact. 100,000 Gazan civilians during this war paid to be smuggled out willfully out of the Gaza Strip into Egypt. So we already know that about 100,000 of them already left willfully. They want to leave this strip of land. Now look, I'm not saying don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there might not be some innocent civilian in the Gaza Strip, but the fact of the matter is there's no reason to stay. If you're a terrorist or terrorist supporter in the Gaza Strip, you don't have a right to stay there. And if you're an innocent civilian, you should have the right to leave. It's a war-torn area. You shouldn't have to live under the rule of the Hamas Nazi rulers who brutalize their own people as well. And every war-torn region, it's a natural occurrence to leave certain countries and to emigrate to other countries during a war. It's a natural occurrence. It happens in every war. About 6 million Syrians emigrated during the Syrian civil war to various countries in Europe. No one said a thing. And nobody closed the borders, and nobody didn't allow them to get out of Syria. But for some reason, the world, the people of the leaders of the world who have different agendas want the Arab Gazans to stay in the Gaza Strip in order to continue propagating the lie of the Palestinian state. And also to pose a threat to Israel. So it serves a lot of different anti-Israel organizations and countries who want to continue having a security threat over Israel. So they would like the Arabs to stay there. So that's one fact. And in 1948, when the State of Israel was founded and declared an independent state, 1 million Jews were expelled from Arab countries. These are Sephardi Jews. Sephardi Jews are Jews from Middle Eastern ethnicity living in various Arab countries. They were actually expelled. 1 million of them were expelled forcefully. Otherwise, they would have been killed by the Arab countries, who were furious that Israel became independent and declared its independence. And like I said, population transfer is a natural occurrence of war. So it's really a win-win situation for the innocent or the Arabs in Gaza who want to pursue a better life and not live in rubble or under the Hamas Nazi rule. And the ones who are terrorists, we have to eliminate, and they cannot stay there to continue posing a threat to the State of Israel, as they declared they would like to, God forbid, perpetrate more and more October 7th. So after this statement, guess who refused to take in the Arab refugees? Egypt and Jordan. So Donald Trump proposed that these two Arab countries, who are very geographically close to the Gaza Strip. I mean, Egypt is right there on the southern border of Gaza. They closed their borders. They closed their crossing called the Rafah crossing, which is near the Philadelphia corridor. They closed it so that the so-called Palestinian Arabs cannot get into Egypt. So they don't want their own brethren, all right? And Jordan also refuses to this day. They might change their mind. Both Egypt and Jordan receive millions or maybe billions of dollars from the U.S. Each year. So they really owe Trump an explanation, and we're going to see this unfolding and continuing to unfold as the weeks go by. Jordan, another fun fact, Jordan is actually consists of 80% Palestinian population. So Jordan itself is it's the Palestinian state. Jordan could become the Palestinian state, but they also closed their borders, and they do not want to receive Arab Gazan civilians. The latest is that Jordan told Trump they will agree to receive about 2,000 Gazan children into their country, but that's not so much. And so what are the reasons that these Arab countries refuse to take the refugees? I mean, they are their brothers. Like they said, if they claim that there's a genocide going on, God forbid, in the Gaza Strip, wouldn't people that are experiencing a genocide want to relocate? And wouldn't their Arab country brethren want to receive them if there's a real genocide going on? All right, so let's get some things straight. Excuse me. That's my tea. So basically there's two reasons. As I said, the most obvious reason is they want the Arab Gazans and Hamas to continue to exist, to regroup and rearm itself in order to continue posing a threat on Israel. Hamas in Gaza is the biggest threat, I would say, closest to Israel that exists in the Arab world, and that's why they are their prized possession to continue killing, God forbid, and posing a threat to our entire state. Number two, Egypt and Jordan, they know very well their Arab brethren, and they know that these so-called Palestinians will destabilize their country. These, like I said, these are the most terror-incited population, and once they move to another country, they may integrate, but they also might continue to engage in radical terrorist activity. Some examples of that, where Arab countries actually expelled Palestinians, in the early 1970s, Jordan, which, like I said, has 80% of Jordan is Palestinian, they expelled tens of thousands of Palestinian terrorists from the PLO terrorist organization. They expelled them from Jordan after these radical terrorists, Palestinian terrorists, destabilized their country, and it was really bad for the country, and it was collapsing it. So they expelled tens of thousands of them. I don't remember that being opposed in the UN, United Nations, or any other country. Lebanon, which used to be predominantly Christian Arab country, and it was actually at one point like a flourishing country, they were overrun by these Palestinian PLO terrorists. And then Lebanon turned into a hellhole, as we've seen during this war too. Hezbollah is the terrorist organization who took over the country, essentially, and there's not many Christian Arabs left in Lebanon. They were overrun. They were they had to flee after the radical terrorists took over Lebanon and Hezbollah. And another fun fact, after the Gulf War between Iraq and Israel, Kuwait had to expel tens of thousands of Palestinians from their country, as these radical Palestinians supported Saddam Hussein. They were destabilizing their country. So The second main reason that Egypt and Jordan are refusing to accept these Gazan civilians population is because they know that they will destabilize their country, and it's very convenient for them to shift blame to Israel and to continue having Hamas and their incited Gaza population posing a security existential threat on the state of Israel, God forbid. Now, if we're talking about genocide, like I said, I mean, they have to get their narrative straight. You can't have a few narratives going on at the same time. Either there's so-called genocide, God forbid, that Israel is perpetrating against the Gaza Strip. But if so, then why wouldn't the population want to relocate? Okay, there's no genocide going on. The IDF, Israel Defense Forces, we have targeted terrorists and in order to neutralize the threat that is Hamas. And there are numerous massive terrorist infrastructures, including a massive underground tunnel system. But speaking of real atrocities, there is starvation going on in Gaza, and that is starvation of our Jewish hostages. We still have about 80 hostages remaining in Gaza hellhole, chained. We know now from testimonies of different hostages that returned. They are in brutal conditions that are akin to the Holocaust. They are in the underground tunnel concentration camp of Gaza. There's no other way to put it. They are being, the male hostages, the men are being, many of them chained, locked in underground tunnels with no daylight, being literally starved to death. This past Saturday, 3 hostages of ours were returned from the hellholes of Hamas, Ohad, Eli, and Or, 3 men who came back emaciated and tortured, which really was reminiscent of the Holocaust sites. And I want to take a look at the footage of these 3 male hostages who returned on Saturday, on the day of Sabbath. They were the ones being starved, whereas the terrorists standing beside them were well-fed, well-uniformed, with new cars, new trucks and tenders that they used to drive around. Hundreds of humanitarian aid trucks of food and cigarettes and comfort and creature comfort items go into the Gaza Strip every day. These people are not being starved, but they are starving our hostages. Here's Or, Ohad, and Eli returning from the Gaza hellhole captivity. Take a look at this footage. Take a look at the 3 hostages returning. 3 male hostages returning. That's Or returning, hugging his brother. Eli returning to his siblings after his wife and 2 daughters were murdered during October 7th. And Ohad returning to his family. He's saying, "I look like a drumstick." And she says, "No, you are very handsome." There's the Israeli flag being waved. Take a look at this picture of our 3 hostages when they were healthy before the horrific captivity they were in, Ohad, Or, and Eli. Look at their pictures coming back from the Hamas captivity. They look emaciated and tortured, reminiscent of Holocaust survivors. And take a look at what Donald Trump said after seeing these 3 hostages return. Take a look at what he says they look like. I think he's on the Air Force One airplane. Take a look.
Hamas has been a disaster. And by the way, I have to tell you that I watched the hostages come back today, and they look like Holocaust survivors. They were in horrible condition. They were emaciated. It looked like many years ago the Holocaust survivors. And I don't know how much longer we can take that. When I watch that, I know we have a deal where we're supposed to get, they dribble in and keep dribbling in, but they are in really bad shape. They have been treated brutally, horribly. Even the ones that came out earlier, they were in a little bit better shape, but mentally they were treated so badly. Who could take that? At some point, we're going to lose our patience. When I see that scene that I saw today with people coming out of helicopters and airplanes that are emaciated, that look like they haven't had a meal in a month, no reason for that. And I don't know how much longer we can take it. I don't know how long we can take it. When I watch people that were healthy people a reasonably short number of years ago, and you look at them today, they look like they've aged 25 years. They literally look like the old pictures of Holocaust survivors. The same thing. I mean, the same thing. And I don't know how long we're going to take that.
So that is 100% right. Donald Trump saying they look like Holocaust survivors. This is the hostage, Ellie, who returned back in this condition, emaciated and tortured. This is his wife and two beautiful daughters who were murdered in cold blood on October 7th. And he came back to that horrific, heartbreaking news that his family was killed. So not only does he have to recover from the traumas of the torturous captivity, but he found out he had no idea what the fate of his wife and two daughters was until he returned back to Israel. Here you see their graves. And this is the second hostage, Or, who is having a just heart-wrenching hug with his son, his 2-year-old son, who he hasn't seen in a year and 3 months. After his wife was murdered on October 7th at the Nova Music Festival, where he was kidnapped and his wife was murdered. His son was taken in by the family and raised without him for a year and 3 months. The son apparently said to him, "Dad, you've been gone for so long. Why did it take you so long to come home?" This is the heart-wrenching hug. It's important for me to show this picture. These are Holocaust survivors in a concentration camp when being liberated. And these are our 3 hostages who returned this past Saturday: Ohad, Ellie, and Or. Look how they look. They look emaciated, tortured. They were in this dungeon, this tunnel hellhole for a year and 3 months without getting much food at all. So what is the plan for, how do we go forward from here? Well, there is a slogan here in Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu coined this slogan, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, coined this total victory. In Hebrew, it's nitzachon muchlat, the total victory. Now, what is total victory? We're actually reading in the past few Sabbaths, we've been reading the portions of the Torah that have to do with the Exodus from Egypt, all right? It was also a 200-year, in essence, captivity, slavery under torturous conditions as well. And when Moses wants to take out these Israelites by God's order, by God's command to save our people and bring them out of Egypt, Pharaoh doesn't agree. He doesn't want to, and he refuses. And he got the 10 plagues. Now, in I think it was last Sabbath or maybe 2 Sabbaths ago, were the last 3 plagues. Now, the last 3 plagues were the crucial defining plagues that after they took place, Pharaoh agreed to release the Israelites. Now, Trump, together with Benjamin Netanyahu, have referred to the fact that if Hamas doesn't keep its end of the deal, continuing to release our hostages, albeit very slowly, and continuing to torture them. And they've been releasing 2 to 3 hostages once a week instead of returning all of them. If they do not comply to return the remaining approximately 80 hostages that still remain in torturous conditions, starving to death in the dungeons of the Gaza tunnels, all hell will break loose. Now, what is this hell? Let's go back to the Israelites in Egypt. 3 of the last remaining plagues were locust, darkness, and the plague of the firstborns. What are these? These are the plagues that bring total victory. How do we get to total victory? Now, at the beginning, Pharaoh said to Moses, all right, I'll let you take out your people, but only the men. You could take out the men to worship your God. The women and children, the Jewish women and children will stay in Egypt. And Moses says, no way. We are all leaving Egypt. And, Pharaoh underwent some of the plagues. And then he said, okay, you know what? I'll be so kind. I'm letting you take out the men and the women and children. But one little star, little clause in the contract. We want to keep our cattle, our sheep, our cattle, leave us our sheep and cattle. Because God decreed that the Israelites take their sheep. It was sort of like a compensation for the 200 years of slavery. And Moses, you would think, we want to save. Here we could save the males. We could save the females, the women and children. Let Pharaoh keep his cattle. What's the problem, right? We want a deal now. A lot of the left-wingers in Israel, this is a very sore, sensitive point, divisive point here in Israel, which Hamas has been pulling at our heartstrings for the past year and 3 months, dividing us in a heart-wrenching way over the issue of the hostages, whether we all want to see the hostages home. The question is, do we want it in an extortion deal where Hamas gets to blackmail us and to continue torturing our remaining hostages? Or do we want to achieve total victory? And Moses says to Pharaoh, no, we're not leaving even your cattle. Why not? Well, the commentators say that to leave Pharaoh his cattle, right? Cattle back then was wealth. It was like prestige. That would leave the Egyptians with dignity, and it would keep their morale very high. Instead of leaving them in a humiliated position as they should have been, we didn't want to leave them even with a speck of dignity, of self-dignity and morale, because that would encourage them to continue either enslaving us or, it wouldn't be total victory. So Moses says no. And the 3 last plagues ensue. One is locust. Locust is the creatures that ate all the food in Egypt. They ate up all the grains and wheat all over the land of Egypt. And even the remaining grains that were kept in like sheds, in storage houses, storage sheds to keep the food, the locusts got everything. That is equivalent to the humanitarian aid. This is not me saying this. This is a beautiful commentary on the weekly Torah portion that we read by Dr. Michael Ben-Ari. He's an expert on Middle East, wonderful commentator and expert who really understands the Arab and Muslim mentality. He says we have to cut off the humanitarian aid. Hopefully now that Trump is in office, they will allow us to stop the humanitarian aid, which goes to refueling and refeeding our Hamas Nazi enemies. So it doesn't make any sense. We need locusts. We need to continue to discontinue the humanitarian aid so that the Hamas has no food, and they say, give us food. Israel, give us food. And we say, no. You want food? Bring back our hostages. It's that simple. We have 80 hostages remaining there. You want some food? You want water? Bring the hostages with you. We'll give you food. Then there was the plague of darkness. The Gaza Strip gets its electricity from Israel. All Israel needs to do is to shut off the main electricity switch so that they do not have electricity in Gaza. The Hamas uses the electricity to continue torturing our hostages, to continue engaging in perpetrating more terrorist attacks and posing an existential threat on Israel. We need to be able to shut off their electricity. You want electricity, you bring back the hostages. Bring them back to Israel. And the final plague, which was the real clencher, this clenched the deal for Pharaoh. After this, he decided to send off the Jews out of Egypt, was the firstborn being killed in each family in Egypt. The firstborn represents the leaders of the family. The leaders. If Egypt didn't have leaders, they couldn't continue to enslave the Israelites. We need to kill off the entire Hamas top brass terrorist Nazis. So that is the way to achieve total victory, and we're hoping that Donald Trump, who really has an amazing business-like, commonsensical way of viewing things out of the box, but in a very simple, but not simplistic, but simple way, will allow Israel to, now that Hamas, in the past day, has stated that they intend to not continue handing over the 3 hostages they are supposed to this coming Saturday. Now Trump is countering that and saying, if you do not bring Israel back their hostages, all hell will break loose. So we're hoping that the humanitarian aid to refeed Hamas with food, cigarettes, and creature comforts will discontinue. Number 2, to really kill off their leadership entirely. And number 3, enough with the electricity, enough with the things that these are things that can really be used as leverage to pressure Hamas to truly surrender and bring us back our hostages. That's all we want. We want to not live in existential danger. That seems like a basic right. And we also want our hostages back. These are people that should have been returned a long time ago. Children, women, males, innocent Jewish civilians who were kidnapped on October 7th in their kibbutz communities or the Nova Music Festival. Many of them watching their families being murdered, their friends being murdered right near them, and they were kidnapped into the Gaza Strip hellhole. We can really only pray and hope, and please stand together with Israel, praying and supporting us in returning our hostages and gaining total victory over the Hamas, Palestine Nazis. And we hope that Trump's vision of the Middle Eastern Riviera comes to fruition for a better life and future for the Gazan people and for Israel and for the entire world, who cannot enable the continued crimes against humanity to continue being perpetrated. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Peace. And to all of my viewers, Jews, Gentiles, good people of the world, thank you so much for being there and for being with us and standing for Israel. Have a great week. See you next time. Bye-bye.